everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com and it's time to talk about Worlds Collide. First of all, thank you to everybody who joined us on the live stream and distracted myself and Adam from quite a lot of the matches we were watching. But don't worry, I've skimmed a few of them back. I've caught any big moments that I didn't miss any of the big moments, but I've caught some of the little bits that I thought I'd missed during the stream. And hopefully, I'm good to go with my review. So yeah, let's take a look at everything that happened at WWE Worlds Collide. First up, let's quickly recap the one pre-show match, which was the United Kingdom Women's Champion Kay Lee taking on Mia Yim. It was the only match on the pre-show, and it was about 10 minutes long, decent amount of time for both women to show what they could do, and it had the expected result at the end. That expected result was Kay Lee picking up the victory as a champion. Of course, they want to keep her looking strong. They wouldn't really have her lose on a pre-show. But at the same time, there was a surprise, not in the winner of the match, but in the way that she won. I thought they put her over as a really dominant and strong champion, like putting her heavily over Mia Yim, but instead, she actually reversed one of Mia Yim's roll-ups into a roll-up of her own, a little bit of rope action as well getting involved for the controversial stolen victory. She's stolen one! Michael Cole would be beside himself were he calling the event. Next up, Finn Balor versus Ilja Dragunov. A really good back and forth competitive match and a really good choice to open the main portion of the show. It was also a very hard-hitting match. Both guys, I think, were cut open by the end. Draganov just under the eye was bleeding a bit, and Balor as well, I think. I couldn't work out where he was bleeding from. Maybe the nose. It was certainly hard-hitting, but thankfully, both guys seemed okay. It certainly didn't affect their ability to put on a really good opening match. And Draganov had a bit of a chance to show what he could do here, which I really like to see. I'm a big fan of his. I think he's fantastic, and this is easily his biggest match since signing with WWE. And it was in the final sort of third of this match that it really came alive, with Dragunov showing why, personally, I consider him to be one of the best comebacks in the business today, if that makes sense. I mean, he's just everywhere at one point, hitting Balor with move after move after move, and they're both selling their asses off for each other, by the way. Balor was not shy about making Dragunov look strong at all. But yeah, Dragunov was kind of everywhere at one point. He was up top, jumping on Balor on the outside, then he was back in the ring with a big coast-to-coast drop kick, and it looked like at one point, maybe he was going to pull out a big victory, but I would have been very shocked had he done so. And its undoing comes when he goes for a big senton off the top rope, and Balor gets the knees up. Dragunov crashes spine first into them. That allows Balor to hit the big running shotgun drop kick, and then the coup de grace, and then 1916, and pick up a fairly decisive victory. But he had to work hard for it. Yeah, I don't know if Dragunov came quite as close as they could have had him with near falls and stuff like that, but at the same time, it was a very good match, and a big impressive showing for Ilja Dragunov. But there was only ever going to be one winner here, Finn Balor, because he, of course, progresses to that big match with Johnny Gargano at the next TakeOver event. Next up, we head to ringside where Cathy Kelly is with both teams that are about to take part soon in the final of the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. On one side, grizzled young veterans, on the other side, the Broserweights. Cathy informs us that the winner of the match won't just win the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, they'll also become #1 contenders for the tag team titles, which is very exciting indeed. Zach Gibson cuts an intense heelish promo, which he's just so great at on behalf of his team, saying why basically they're definitely going to win. And then we go over to Matt Riddle, and shall we say he is less intense. He dialed that intensity down just a little bit. Riddle, of course, goes, bro. And then it says basically, why are you being so serious? You should be happy. You should be smiling because you know that if you win the match, then you get to become #1 contenders. He's like, I've got a big smile on my face. I know that my partner Pete Dunne has a big smile on his face. And of course, we see Pete Dunne next to him not smiling in the slightest. Although he may have been trying not to corpse a little bit, but he did a good job of keeping his signature stony expression. Dunne now gets on the mic and says, look, I'll be blunt. Hey, the crowd are all like, way. Oh, it's funny, isn't it? And then basically says, we're going to win, we're really, really good. Matt Riddle's going to smoke you. We're the best, we're the bros away. That's basically Pete Dunne's point. And I agree with him. I do think that Riddle and Dunne will win this match. But I wouldn't be too surprised if Grizzled Young Vets pulled out the upset victory. It would be a good look for NXT UK if one of their tag team division members, or two of their tag team division members, I guess, were able to win the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. Next up, the Cruiserweight Championship match pitting the champion Angel Garza against three challengers. There was Jordan Devlin, there was Travis Banks, and there was Isaiah Swerve Scott. And all three challengers team up to take out Garza early on. Obviously not for the duration of the match, but it helps get over the fact that they all recognise him as the big threat, the big guy with the target on his back, who they want to take out and nab that lovely title. The new Cruiserweight title, by the way, looks absolutely bloody gorgeous. There are some really nice moments in this match. There's a lot of fast-paced action. It's exactly what you want from a Cruiserweight match, basically, but there's some nice moments featuring all four men. Sometimes it's one guy running wild on the other three. Sometimes it's all four involved in the same spot, such as Isaiah Scott's big jumping double stomp from the top rope onto Angel Garza while he's holding both of the other men. There's a lot of moments like this that look really dangerous and kind of car crashy, but I think they executed them about as well as they could have done. It was really exciting at certain points. Another example would be Jordan Devlin's just a casual Spanish fly from the top rope, lads. You know, there's some crazy athleticism on show in this match. I'm also really glad, and yes, there's a bit of personal bias in here because I've had experience working with him in a promotion in the past, not working with him in that way. I'm not a bloody wrestler, Jesus. But it was nice to see Travis Banks get a chance to really shine. He runs wild for a little bit, hitting the other guys with various different moves. At one point, he's got all three stacked up in the corner, just a pile of bodies in his wake. But it looks as though Angel Garza has the win sealed because he manages to dump Travis Banks to the outside, hit Isaiah Scott with his finisher. 1, 2, Jordan Devlin's in. Big headbutt to break up the pinfall attempt. Devlin now hits Scott with his finisher. Scott's now taking 2 finishers. There's no way he's kicking out. And Angel Garza's on the other side of the ring. 1, 2, he dives and just comes up short. 3, and Jordan Devlin is the new Cruiserweight champion. Wow, that is a bold booking decision, but it's one that I really, really like. Devlin obviously he's impressed pretty much throughout his NXT UK run, and of course on the independent scene as well. But he really, really impressed also in defeat to Tyler Bate at the last UK TakeOver event. And I think this is a good reward for that. Obviously he lost that match against Tyler, but I like him as Cruiserweight champion. I really like the idea of the title going over to NXT UK for a while. I like it. Yes, it's a big, quite risky step, but one that could pay off for WWE. The only minor drawback for me is that just the fact that Angel Garza's title reign didn't last very long, but at the same time, he's eye-catching enough and charismatic enough and talented enough in the ring as well to kind of get attention without needing a long title reign to back it up. Back to ringside and we see latecomers in the event. Oh, who are these arrogant so-and-sos? It's cheeky Chelsea Green and ridiculous Robert Stone, those wacky heels. What are they like? They look arrogant to be there. Is that an emotion? Let's say it is. Next up, this match I was really, really looking forward to, and I think also it lived up to the hype as well. Moustache Mountain, Tyler Bate and Trent Seven taking on DIY, Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. Can everyone get along? Is no one going to turn on anyone? Let's find out. It's actually a very friendly start between all four men. There's a lot of handshakes, there's a lot of old-timey British wrestling with like loads of slick reversals and lovely groundwork and stuff, but not much in the way of big intense strikes or anything like that. In fact, at one point, Trent Seven and Tommaso Ciampa just have a lovely pose off, which is a rarity these days, but lovely to see nonetheless. And yeah, they're all clearly having great fun messing about at the start of the match, but it features some very slick, impressive wrestling, and also you're just waiting for the intensity to ramp up because we all know it's going to happen. It's just a case of when. And the intensity got ramped up pretty early on, to be honest. It was almost like a blink and you'll miss it, and suddenly they're throwing big knee strikes at each other, and all four men are flying around and doing dives and everything, and suddenly you know that it's on. It's go time, everyone. At one point, Ciampa goes for Project Ciampa, but Tyler reverses it into the Tyler Driver 97, but Johnny Gargano is in to save the day for his tag team partner. A little bit later on, it's now DIY in firm control. They've got stereo submissions on Moustache Mountain in the middle of the ring. Both members of Moustache Mountain are clawing at each other, holding each other's hands to stop them from tapping out. It's a little bit like how DIY beat the Revival back at TakeOver Toronto, the first TakeOver Toronto, an absolutely astounding tag team match, by the way. But in this case, it doesn't get DIY the win. Instead, Moustache Mountain power to their feet and do stereo airplane spins on both of their opponents. That's a very unique spot. I really like that. And perhaps the main story of the match is DIY forcing miscommunications between both members of Moustache Mountain. At one point, they cause an inadvertent collision between the two. At one point, Ciampa is on the ground or on the canvas, and he pulls Trent Seven on top of him to block a corkscrew from Tyler from the top. And at one point, they just divert a big slap from Trent Seven right into Tyler Bate's face. Oh, bloody hell. And DIY eventually do take out Bate with double drop kicks, I believe it was, to a jumping Tyler Bate. And then they isolate Trent Seven, hit him with the meeting in the middle, and that's enough to pick up the big victory for DIY. This match was really good. Definitely check it out. At this point on the stream, myself and Adam were like, oh god, is one of Moustache Mountain going to turn on the other because they're so devastated to have lost? But no, it's a much happier ending than we were expecting, actually. All four men shake hands, everyone holds up each other's arms, and we all just celebrate a lovely wrestling match. That's nice. Still worried that Moustache Mountain are going to fall apart in the near future, but we'll see, I guess. Next up, back to the crowd for some more familiar faces. First of all, Mercedes Martinez, and it's nice to see her get a pretty big reception from the crowd. And then elsewhere in the crowd, it's Dakota Kai. Boo! What an evil woman. And immediately she's jumped from behind by Tegan Nox, who's just raining down blows on Dakota Kai. She charges and tackles her through the crowd barrier. It's all kicking off until security get involved and drag her away. Yes, nice to see Tegan Nox have some fire about her and get her own back on Dakota Kai for once. I'm very excited for their match, which I think is on next week's NXT. On to the next match now, which is for the NXT Championship. They've dropped women's from the NXT Women's Championship. Certainly on the graphic they did anyway. Anyway, it's the champion Rhea Ripley taking on the challenger Toni Storm. This had a really hard match to follow in that superb tag team match just beforehand. So it was, I have to admit, the crowd were a little bit more subdued for this one. And also it seemed to be cut short. It didn't last for as long as I thought it would, especially for a title match under the NXT banner. Only about 10 minutes or so. Of course, Rhea has been on an unbelievable run over the past few months, not just on NXT, but a Survivor Series and all the rest of that. So I kind of understand why this may have been cut shorter, just to make her seem really strong and dominant, but I don't know if that was by design or by accident. I mean, don't get me wrong, Toni gets some nice offense in, some nice suplexes, some submission attempts and everything, but it only takes one mistake for Rhea to put her away. Toni heads up top, which they point out on commentary is a bit of a risk for her. She's not normally a high flyer. She goes for a frog splash, misses, Rhea rolls out the way, and just immediately hits the riptide, and that's enough to retain the title. Yeah, she defeated Toni in quite straightforward fashion there. We cut to ringside and Bianca Belair is watching on, very interested, obviously, because she recently won that Battle Royal on NXT to become the new #1 contender. And before the main event, there's another little segment to talk about, which was backstage, where there was a brawl kicking off between Finn Balor and Johnny Gargano. It looked like Balor had blindsided Gargano, potentially to get the edge on him before their takeover match. But then Moustache Mountain, because they're lovely lads, they came along and helped save the day, helped kind of separate the two, fight off Balor a little bit, and he just chucked a security guard into a table. It looked like a nasty landing for that poor dude. And finally, the main event, the big one, the multi-man tag team match that we were all waiting for. 4-on-4, Undisputed ERA taking on Imperium. And let's just get this out of the way. I'm sure you've probably seen what happened early on in this match on social media, and it looked pretty nasty. Hopefully, Alexander Wolf is okay. The accident occurred pretty early on in the match with Bobby Fish and Roderick Strong going for stereo strikes to Alexander Wolf, and I think it was the strike from the front from Bobby Fish that just accidentally caught Wolf full on the jaw or on the chin sort of area, and you just immediately saw him go a bit limp and lean over, and he was just out of there. He was dazed. He didn't know what was going on. The Undisputed Era go for a pinfall, and it's like 1, 2, and then I don't know whether his opponent managed to get Wolf's shoulder off the canvas or whether he just somehow instinctively raised a shoulder, but he kind of kicked out. And then credit to the referee, by the way, who once he noticed there was something wrong, immediately separated the teams and helped get Alexander Wolf out of there. Wolf is taken to the back and he gets a nice round of applause as he goes off, and credit to the remaining 7 men in this match for having to restructure a plan which obviously had just gone partially out of the window. Obviously they'd have to rethink everything that was going to involve Alexander Wolf going forwards. For a long match as well, this went about half an hour. But once again, obviously the most important thing, regardless of the quality of the match, which was great by the way, but regardless of that, the most important thing is that Alexander Wolf hopefully isn't too seriously hurt and indeed recovers in a quick fashion. But yes, they did put on a great match. In my opinion, the second best match of the night behind Moustache Mountain versus DIY. And despite it going long, despite it going 30 minutes or so, it didn't feel that long, which I think is a credit to how entertaining it was. A big highlight for me was whenever Volta and Kyle O'Reilly were in the ring together, they have an amazing, immediate chemistry, which I was really enjoying. So much so that I mean, yes, I'm enjoying this feud between Volta and Adam Cole. But the match I want to see now is Volta versus Kyle O'Reilly. It was fantastic, some of these exchanges. It all spills to the outside at one point, and Roderick Strong. I mean, Volta's about to put Roderick Strong through one of the announce tables, but Kyle O'Reilly saves the day from behind, blindsiding Volta. And then Roderick Strong, I mean, it's in his name, I suppose, Olympic slams Volta from one announce table through the other. It's an amazing spot, and it takes Volta out of commission for a bit of a chunk of the match. And predictably, the Era dominate for a little bit, because obviously eventually it's basically 4-on-2 now, with Alexander Wolf in the back and Walter just laid out in the wreckage of the announce table. But he does slowly make his way back to the apron, and eventually, a little while later, gets the hot tag, just starts chopping fools, just starts chopping people down left, right and centre, as only he can. Walter's going crazy, but he takes his eye off the ball a little bit, and Adam Cole is able to hit him with the last shot for a very convincing near fall. But I think it was Fabian Eichner who was in there at the last moment to break it up and save the day for his team. There's a big sequence of dives with lads just jumping on each other on the outside. The last one is Eichner with a huge jump, like upwards from the top rope to the outside. I think it's at a crossbody. He almost overshoots it, but manages to get caught. It's very dramatic and exciting. And that has left Bobby Fish isolated with Walter inside the ring. And if any member of the era is going to get pinned, it's probably most likely going to be Bobby Fish. Fish does have the upper hand though, and goes for that safest of moves that never gets reversed or evaded, the moonsault. It's a beautiful moonsault, by the way, Kurt Angle-esque, lovely arc, lovely elevation, lands on the canvas, Walter rolls out the way, and drills Bobby Fish with a huge powerbomb to pick up the victory for his team. I don't know if WWE were expecting this response. Maybe the Era was supposed to be the de facto baby faces in this match, despite both teams being heels, because, you know, they're on home soil, they're representing the NXT American brand, and they got a huge reception when they came out. But because of the events of the match, and because what unfortunately happened to Alexander Wolf, it was like Imperium sort of became the baby faces instead, and all of the wrestlers involved reacted accordingly and helped, I guess, respond to what the crowd were doing. And it's a huge win for Imperium as well. It would have been a huge win were it 4-on-4, but the fact that it was essentially 4-on-3 for almost all of the match makes their win look even more impressive, and I think that this was the right call. We've seen the Undisputed Era dominate for a while now, and that's really good and fun, and it doesn't really get old, but I do really enjoy the idea of using their popularity and their strength to help get another stable over huge. And that's the end of the show, with the 3 remaining members of Imperium standing at the top of the ramp doing their signature pose with their music blaring, and it's really sad that Alexander Wolf wasn't there to be part of that moment with them. Hopefully, if he's alright and able to return to action soon, they can kind of use this in a storyline sort of way. I wouldn't put it past NXT, they're normally really good at capitalizing on real things and turning it into a bit of a storyline. But obviously, that's only appropriate if he recovers well. And hopefully he does, you know, hopefully he's alright. But yeah, regardless of that, it was a great match. And that's it, that's what happened at WWE Worlds Collide. And guess what? Oh, it's the Royal Rumble tomorrow night, and I absolutely cannot wait. But a great show here, pretty consistent quality all the way through, with 2 big standout matches for me, Moustache Mountain versus DIY, and the main event, Undisputed Era versus Imperium. Thanks for watching. Thanks very much for watching, and let us know what you think in the comments section down below. You can follow Cultaholic on Twitter at Cultaholic, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cultaholic. If you enjoy what we do, then please do check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Cultaholic, where you can pledge. And don't forget, of course, most importantly of all, to hit subscribe and to join us.